Oh, how's it going, everybody? And we're back for another all-in quickie. And it's kind of like all-in, except we're promoting bands that have less than 5 original studio albums, or more than one. So this week we're going to talk about a band that I personally think is well underrated. And maybe if rock were still popular as a whole, or maybe if they came out 10 years sooner, I think they would have really I think they would have really took off. So tonight we're going to talk about a little local band from York, PA. They're called the Small Town Titans. That's right. So yeah, how I first heard the Small Town Titans was actually from going to these underground shows I used to go to years ago. Me and my fiance did anyway. We were like following Silvertongue everywhere at this point. Like, this started around, like, for me, around 2012 and lasted until maybe 2017. Sort of like a 5-year stretch of, like, seeing all these underground bands that just hadn't made it yet. And, of course, Small Town Titans, they were right in that mix, right around 14, 15, 16. That's about when I was seeing them. But I think, I have a lot of experiences with them. So I saw them, I think the first time I saw them was in 2014. It was over at Hard Times in Hagerstown when that was still open. And, of course, they were opening up for Silvertongue that night. And then I saw them again in 2015 at Tubby's up in Duncannon, PA, it's north of Harrisburg. And, yeah, Hard Times is shut down. Tubby's unfortunately burned to the ground. It's gone now. But yeah, I saw them at Tubby's that time, and sort of story behind that show is my fiance actually won the tickets to go to that show, and they were actually opening up for like Head PE and Alien Ant Farm. So yeah, the place was pretty damn packed that night, especially when Head PE hit the stage. We left before Alien Ant Farm because the place was just way too crowded. Like, you couldn't even move to get a beer. But that's kind of like aside from the topic at hand here tonight. And the last time I got to see them was, I believe it was at the Orchards in Chambersburg in 2016. And yeah, it's only a 3-man band, kind of like Rush. But you can see the poster there, autographed by the 3 members back there in the background. Pretty sweet. So, Small Town Titans, talking about their discography. So, they have 3 original full-length studio albums. So they meet the criteria of this little quickie series. And they actually have more EPs than they do original albums, and a lot of one-offs. So they got a lot of, like... That's what a lot of these newer bands are doing. They're releasing a lot of, like, one-offs and small EPs. But I guess we'll start off... We'll talk about this little EP, Small Town Titans. So we start off, and it came out in 2012. We start off with the song Party in Hell, damn good song. Casting Stones Among the Wicked, Amnesia, State of the Unknown, and Sky High. And I think Party in Hell, that's like the anthem of this album right here. Love it. And then we move on to their first full-length album, which released in 2013. So yeah, their full-length albums span from like 2013's from Fight to Flight all the way to The Ride in 2020. So from Fight to Flight, we have Flight 24, The End of the World, Within the Heart of War, The Great Escape, A Beautiful Lie, Line by Line, 9 to 5, Universal Limits, The Poison We Provide, Sitting Alone, and The Devil on My Shoulder. And yeah, definitely a damn good full album debut here. I actually, first Titan show I went to, I actually purchased these 2 at the merch desk. So yeah, I got those at the live show, but that's the only ones I have on physical. From that point on, I think I was just downloading everything. So we move on to Reflection, which that one dropped in 2016. And definitely a good anthem here. We got Roddy and Reckless starting it off. Love that song. We Owe You the Truth, another good one. Doorbell, Shadows, Junkin' For You, Broken Record, The Day That I Die, Then and Now, Pops, and The Devil's Choir. And so far, I'm like, if you're going in order here, so far I like that album better, the Reflection album. I think she actually had a copy of that one. But, yeah, damn good album. So then, moving on, we just get a bunch of one-offs after this for a while. So, we have Me, Myself, and the Monster as a single. Oh, here, and then this is the song that really gave the band a lot of buzz. And I'm talking, like, outside of, like, the underground circle of friends that we had. Like, you got their version of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, which dropped in 2017. And definitely a damn good twist on a Christmas Carol for sure. Love it. I never got to see them perform this live because they released it after the last show I went to. But this one I think got them a lot of buzz. And then you got the song Dragonfly. Then they covered Spoon Man by Soundgarden. Of course, Junker for You, that was on the Reflection album. So then we move on to the Hybrid Sessions, little EP they released in 2018. Here we have the song Wreck, damn good way to start that off. Me, Myself, and a Monster. And of course, yeah, they put the Grinch on this album, so they made that a part of that album. Same with Dragonfly and Spoon Man, and then you got More for Less. So then we move on. We have a one-off. They redid Monster Mash. So yeah, very festive too. Of course, that dropped in 2018. Never really landed on an album. So then they also do a cover of You're My Best Friend by Queen. They did an original called War Cry. Damn good song. They covered Piano Man by Billy Joel, Tiny Dancer by Elton John. And then you got Folsom Prison Blues, which was Johnny Cash. They dropped that in 19, but I was actually on YouTube here, on this very channel, looking back at some of the old videos that I posted to them. And yes, I do have videos to all three shows uploaded on this channel if you want to check them out. They actually did do Folsom Prison Blues in one of those shows, like, at least 3 years before the studio version of it was released. So then we move on, we got Fat Bottom Girls, which was originally Queen. That dropped in 2019. And then we have The Immigrant Song, which is Led Zeppelin. And then they do a cover called Hunger Strike, which was Temple of the Dog. You know, like a 90s tune back in the day. And then they do one called Somewhere. So then moving on, we have another EP. It's like an acoustic set. It's called What Comes Next. And most of this being sort of like original stuff, but in acoustic form. You have Social Drift Away, Hallelujah, Line by Line, and then they do an acoustic version of Your Mean One, Mr. Grinch. They do an acoustic version of Free Fallin', which was Tom Petty, and Devil on My Shoulder, an acoustic. And then here they started to promote The Ride. So The Ride actually came out as a single. And then they dropped it as a full album. So here, this is their last full-length studio album, dropping in 2020. You have Ruffling Feathers, The Man, Behind the Moon, Let Me Breathe, Universal Limits. They redid 9 to 5, Sex and Candy, which was Marcy Playground, When It All Comes Down, Junkie for You, and they end with the title track, The Ride. And definitely a good way to end it there. And of course, they sort of did the same thing that, like, the bigger bands are now doing. Like, they'll release an album, and then maybe a couple years later, they'll release, like, an expanded version or a bonus version. So here in the bonus version, you get an acoustic version of The Man, an acoustic version of Behind the Moon, and also an acoustic version of Let Me Breathe. And then, to end it, we get a one-off called Finish the Story. So, they actually released 2 EPs here recently as well. Not really heavily promoted, and only can be had on physical. So they did a two-parter here. Small Town Titans, Don't Judge a Band by Its Covers, Volume 1. And this one here, of course, they include You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. They got Fat Bottom Girls, Immigrant Song, Folsom Prison Blues, and one that I've never heard, Show Me How to Live, which was Audio Slave. And then moving on, we have the second edition of that album. So here we have the cover Royals, which I do have that as like a random download. Damn good cover. I remember when they were performing that live too. Then they covered Sober by Tool, Man in the Box by Alice in Chains, What's Up by Four Non Blondes, and then they did Something in the Orange. I was looking at some stats on their success, and You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, definitely their most successful song. And it charted on 3 Billboard charts, and it reached number 2 on the iTunes Rock chart. I mean, that's impressive. But yeah, after that song had dropped, I mean, I heard people outside of the underground scene talking about them. So yeah, definitely another underrated band in my opinion. You know, Hometown Boys. York has really produced a lot of good bands. Like, you had Live back in the 90s, and then, you know, back in would have been the mid-2000s, I guess, you had Hailstorm. So, definitely some good bands from that area. But, anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this all-in quickie featuring our local guys here, Small Town Titans. And next band we're going to talk about in the next edition of the All-In Quickie would be a band that, yes, they're rock, but they're all acoustic. Find out who it is.